I mean it when I say stop. Some books are getting too hot, people are overpaying, and I mean it. Let's talk about the hottest comic books in the world.
Now, when you hear someone yell stop, what do you immediately think of? Collaborate and listen, In the Name of Love, or drop and open up shop?
Hit the like button and join us every single week. We cover the hottest comic books in the world. Subscribe to the channel. We've been doing this video for over 4 years. Can you believe it? Books that land on the Hot 10 qualify themselves to be placed here because they've had at least 3 different sales that are outperforming their recent 12-month average, or they're breaking records. Let's talk about number 10 on the list, because I suspect it's because of a video game announcement as well as a live-action movie announcement with an R rating. Number 10 on the list, TMNT the Last Ronin, issue number 1.
And this has got to be the first time that this has hit the Hot 10. I mean, I feel like it's the first time I'm getting to talk about it. I absolutely loved this series, The Last Ronin. Hot for good reason. Cannot wait for the video game. A live-action R-rated movie. It seems like the MCU might be taking a page out of TMNT's book on this one.
Totally agree with you, Jim. We'll get to Deadpool in a minute because we have so many sales to report on. This book was just on the trending list days ago and has exploded since.
We've got high-performing sales and a slew of record breakers. Let's start with the CGC 9.6, selling for $200. That's 64% above its 12-month average, and that's a year-high sale.
And we don't throw that term around lightly. One sale doesn't qualify for us to say it's a year-long high. In this particular case, at least 5 copies in this grade have sold this year, and that was the highest thus far. We also have a second printing 9.8 that hit $70. That's up 11%. And then we have a 9.8 that sold for $305. That's up 67%. But this week, wait for it, 29 different copies outsold the recent 12-month average. Hot damn.
29 copies is crazy. We also have a CGC 9.9 that sold for $701. That's a year-high sale and 56% above its 12-month average. Also, 5 copies outperformed that average this week.
And we're not done. We're just getting started. We have 3 different record-breaking sales to talk about. The 9.4, in which 3 copies outsold the recent 12-month average, had its record broken, last selling in 2021 for a height of $125, up 12%, now selling for $140. The 9.8, yeah, high sales in 2022 were $330. The highest this week was paid for $345, setting the record for a 5% increase.
And then we've got a Gem Mint 10, baby. This last set the record in 2023 when it sold for $1,750. It broke record this week, selling for 71% higher, coming in at $3,000.
Which brings us to number 9 on the list with the 3D Zone, issue number 16 from 1989. Dave Stevens cover. Is it because of the comic? Or is it because of the cover? I suspect the latter. Those are some sexy space vixens.
Or it could be because of those 3D glasses, which actually makes this book pretty tough and high grade. But Dave Stevens has been on fire ever since that documentary came out, Drawn to Perfection, that was so well done and well received. His books are on fire. We actually have a list of all of his covers that have been performing crazily since then.
Dude, he just said it was because of those 3D glasses. I love that. All right, yeah, we have a bunch of other comics that have not just broken record, but like multiple records. And you can find all the numbers on Key Collector Comics. Use code TOM101, the best comic app in existence, where we source all this comic book data from. But we're talking about Airboy, number 1. Alien Worlds, number 4. Chevelle Noir, issue number 1. Chevelle Noir, issue number 7. Planet Comics 1, Seduction of the Innocent 3D. And Vanguard Illustrated number 2. Go and check Key Collector to see those prices. But let's get back to the list and hit you with some high-performing books as well as a record-breaking sale.
And remember, I told you it was tough and high grade. There are only 151 slabs on the census, and the 9.2 has just 19 copies, the 9.4 just 34, and the 9.8 has 27 copies. That 9.2 sold for $333, right about the 12-month average. The 9.4 up 22%, and the 9.8 came in at $1,907, 6% above average.
There's only 27 copies graded at a 9.8. Seeing 9.6s go for around $500 would lead you to believe that this book at a 9.8 would probably reach around the $1,100 to $1,200 mark. Not this book. Seeing it approach the $2,000 marker makes sense because not only did it have 3D glasses, as Jem said, there were 2 pairs included and stapled in the center. This book is beyond tough. It is so scarce to even get it complete, let alone imagine how it's been probably sandwiched in long boxes, messing up both sides of the comic with all those inserts.
And that 1900 was actually a pretty good pickup because in March there were 2 sales. You had one for $22.50 and another for $2,500, meaning people will probably grab this in lower grade, just like the 8.0, which just broke record. It last broke record in 2021 where it sold for $150. It's up 33% now, selling for $199.
And now we're at number 8 on the list with New Mutants 87. First appearance of Cable, the 7.5 up 11%. The 8.5 this week had 3 copies outperform the recent 12-month average, the highest being for 116, an increase of 25%. The 9.0's up 4%, 9.2 22%, 9.4 1%. And the 9.6 had 3 copies outsell the recent 12-month average. And the year-high sale was clocked in this past week for $372, an increase of 81%.
And then we have the CGC 9.8 coming in at $480, right around his 12-month average. Now, everyone's wondering, is Josh Brolin going to reprise his role as Cable, as some sort of cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine? I think the book is hot less because of that and more so because of that episode 5 in X-Men 97 when Cable comes through the portal, sees Madeline Pryor, and calls her mom. They really gave us the payoff so quick on that. We just saw Cable as a baby, got the technovirus, got shipped to the future, and then bam, we get Cable.
I agree with you, Jem, but we're going to talk about Deadpool spec in a little bit. There's a reason for the clickbait, comic fam. Stay tuned. But the Deadpool Wolverine trailer gave us what appears to be a glimpse of former Fox mutants. Deathstrike, Azazel. We haven't seen them since X2 and, what was it, First Class? I would be surprised that we don't see Josh Brolin reprise his role, especially after he went on the record to say that he can't talk about it because he doesn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't show up in this movie at this point. Moving on to number 7 on the list, I mentioned episode 5, and here we are, Uncanny X-Men 266, the second appearance of Gambit.
Who knows anymore? But holy smokes, there is a plethora of sales. Go peep Key Collector for all of them. We're going to hit you with the highlights. 9.4, selling for $249, an increase of 31%. That is a year-high sale, and 3 copies outperform the recent 12-month average. And then we have a 9.4 newsstand that sold for $50 more than that direct market copy for $300. That's an increase of 30%, and that was also a year-long high.
The 9.6 is up 11%, 2 copies outperforming that average, and the 9.8 sold for $700 on the high end, 2% above its average, and also 2 copies outperforming this week.
This book is averaging right around the $600 to $700 marker at a 9.8, which is quite strong considering that since we chatted about this book last 2 weeks ago, because we track that CGC census count, hit the subscribe button. I don't think anybody in the comic marketplace is doing that. We have an increase of 29.8s in 14 days. That's more than 1 per day. You would think that this book would be suffering from that increase, but it's holding strong because the demand is so high. Could it be because of X-Men 97? Episode 5? Absolutely. We've chatted about that already. But also, Channing Tatum reprising his role as Gambit seems inevitable.
It's funny, it feels like we've already gotten him as Gambit, but yeah, not reprising his role. We've yet to see him play the character, but it's been rumored for like how many years now?
Wow, that slip absolutely just happened. In my brain, Channing Tatum has already been Gambit because of how long these rumors have been circulating.
It's the Mandela effect. Moving on to number 6 on the list, I can't believe this book is this low, especially after that trailer.
ComicTom101.com to join the mystery mail call. It's our way to send you comics every month, and you support the show. 1 per box is a Ghost Rider Final Vengeance First Hood as Ghost Rider, a cool minor key by cover artist In Hyuk Lee.
And wait a minute, what's that book I saw you post on Instagram? Deadpool, Black, White, and Blood, issue number 1. You're dropping them Instagram exclusives. That's also going to be 1 per box. ComicTom101.com. Support the show as we move on to number 6. And like I said, I can't believe it made it this low, but keep in mind, these sales were before the most recent Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. We've got Wolverine 1, the Frank Miller series, first miniseries for Logan.
Peep Key Collector for all the sales because you guys are buying the hell out of this book. The 9.6 sold for $310, up 17%. The Newsy 9.6 sold for $510, a couple $100 more for a 43% increase, and that right there was a year high sale. Then we have the 9.8 selling for $780. 5 copies outsold that recent 12-month average, and that high sale was an increase of 17% when you compare it. The newsstand 9.8 clocked in a sale at $1,575. That is the highest this book has sold in that grade with that barcode all year for an increase of 25% when you compare it to the recent 12-month average.
And since we talked about this book just last week when it reached #1 on the Hot 10, there have been 80 more slabs added to the census, crossing the 23,000 mark. And check this out, 10 more in 9.2, 8 more in 9.4, 11 more in 9.6, and there are 20 more 9.8s on the census.
That is an increase of nearly 3 brand new 9.8 Wolverine 1s being added to the census every single day. Hot damn.
Man, that trailer was amazing. I am really excited to see this movie, and it showcased so much more of Wolverine. It's more of a Wolverine trailer than a Deadpool trailer.
The action looks superb. Rob Liefeld, co-creator of Deadpool, even went on record to say that this was some of the best action sequences that he's ever seen in the MCU.
He also signed off on the Liefeld's orthopedic building in the background, man. Great sense of humor, and I thought that was hilarious.
Which now brings us to #5. And I want to officially tell the community that you need to wait buying this book. And it's a big key. And it's one of the hottest in the world and has been for over 6 months. #5 on the list, New Mutants, 98.
Yeah, the first appearance of Deadpool, and you got to ask yourself, how much more hype could there be for this character at this point? What would cause this book to increase in value more than where it's at? That's why we're kind of feeling like if you're in the market for this book, it's probably best to just wait it out a few months because it's the hottest it's going to be for some time.
The movie is 2 months away. I can't imagine anything happening with Deadpool that's going to cause a stir to this comic book long-term in the immediate future. And this book has been trending around the $1,100 to $1,300 marker if people are patient and they're scooping it up on auction. But let's report on the prices and double back on the census count to prove our point.
The CGC 9.0 sold for $361, an increase of 5%, but look at the difference between the direct market and the newsstand, which sold for $465. That's up 20%, and 2 copies outperformed the average this week.
And then we have the newsstand 9.2, couldn't even keep up. It sold for $5 less than the newsstand 9.0 that we just reported on for an increase of 11%. That tells me that people are getting that barcode FOMO.
The direct market 9.4 is up 16%, the 9.6 is up 6%, with 2 copies outperforming the average, and the CGC 9.8, 2 copies outperformed that 12-month average, but the higher one being at $1,692, that's 21% above average.
A near $1,700 height this week when the last publicly recorded sale for a 9.8 was only $1,300. People need to be patient because a $400 savings could be extravagant. However, when you look at the census count, even 1,500, which is around the average this book has been going for all year, is starting to look grim. In the last 2 weeks, there has been an increase in 9.8 copies to the census alone of 19 copies, nearly 3 a day.
It still blows my mind that this late in the game with the existence of CGC that we're still seeing new copies, so many new copies being graded and added to the census. And just think when all of those hit the market, the person who spent that $1,700 might not be too happy.
Which brings us to #4 on the list with Iron Man #1, the first ongoing title series featuring Iron Man, that big premiere issue, the origin of Tony Stark. Why is this book on the list? I mean, yeah, fingers crossed that they're going to try to attempt to fix the MCU by reintegrating Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., or is the Red Skull gonna be Iron Man? I'm not kidding.
Yeah, this is a book that shows up on the list every couple of months out of the year, but it's kind of funny how we're seeing the tie-ins with Iron Man, with Red Skull, all of that within the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. It looks like they're just borrowing heavily from Old Man Logan.
Let's take a look at some of these Easter eggs and walk you through it. There was a car spotted in the trailer. If you look closely, you can see an Iron Man hood ornament on the hood of the car. This is the same car that the alter ego of Red Skull drove all the way back in 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger.
And how could you forget that car? That was a pretty sweet ride. You have Cassandra Nova seemingly able to control Logan, and you even have that giant Ant-Man skull.
They're borrowing lines from Old Man Logan. I mean, the quote is, "This Wolverine let down his entire world." It kind of hints to him being responsible for possibly the demise or at least the apocalyptic event that is actively occurring in this movie. We know we're getting multiverse versions of characters. And in Old Man Logan, let's not forget that Red Skull wore Captain America's mask briefly. Could they be doing kind of a similar change up to bring back older characters from MCU's past?
It wouldn't be the first time they did it and with the same character, so we're going to have to wait and see. There are 150 more slabs on the census since we last talked about this book back in December at the end of the year, including one new 9.8. We got a 5.5 that sold for $684. That's 19% above average, and that is also the year-high sale.
The 6.0 sold for $720 for an increase of 11%. The 7.0 clocked in at $999 for an increase of 17%. And then, Jen, we have two more year-high sales. What's going on?
Yeah, we got the 8.5. It sold for $1,617. That's 3% above its 12-month average. And then the 9.0 coming in at $2,750 for an increase of 10%.
And now we're at number 3 on the list with a blue chip book that we haven't chatted about since November. Casting, rumors of not just the character, or at least renditions of the character, but the first Marvel family. Galactus hints. We have FF48, Jack Kirby goodness, the first appearance of the Silver Surfer. Norrin Radd, I should probably specify that.
And I can't believe this is the first time we're talking about Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, so long after the announcement, but the announcement was kind of a letdown. It wasn't Norrin Radd's Silver Surfer that we got, it was Shalabal.
That's right, but we'll get to that in a second because this right here is a classic book. Again, so much love. Multiple year-high sales were reported this week. The 2.0, up 24%, selling for $800. The 3.5, up 4%, selling for $899. The 4.5 sold for $1,250, an increase of 12%, and that's another year high.
The 5.0 is up 5%. The 6.0 is up 13%, selling for $2,100, another year high. And then we have the 7.5, selling for $3,720. That's an 8% increase. That's a year high sale, and 2 copies outperformed the 12-month average this week.
I've gone on record, Jem. I think the casting announcement only makes me more excited of an inevitable casting of Norrin Radd in the future. I still think we're getting the classic Silver Surfer. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. I think announcing that there's going to be a female Silver Surfer almost implies we're going to get the Norrin Radd version of Silver Surfer as well. And I like what you said before we started recording here. If they would have announced, hey, we've got the new Shalabal casting, nobody would have cared.
And speaking of Shalabal, number 2 on the list, Silver Surfer number 1, the first solo ongoing Silver Surfer series, the origin of the Silver Surfer, square-bound book, tough as hell, and the first appearance of Shalabal.
Yeah, and this book made the trending list just a few weeks ago. 22 more slabs added to the census since then. Nothing really in high grade, though, but there is a new 0.5. The 3.0, however, came in at $366. That's an increase of 13%. The 4.5 is up 11%. The 5.0 is up 5%. And the 5.5 clocked in at just shy of $600, 3% above average, but another year high.
The 7.0 went for $1,440 for another year-high sale for an increase of 17%. The 7.5 had 2 different copies outperform the recent 12-month average. The increase of 8% went to the high sale of $1,560. And then the 9.2 sold for $5,520. That's an increase of 5%, all because of the Julia Garner casting announcement.
What do you guys think? Do you think that announcing Shalabal as one of Galactus' heralds implies that we're going to get Norrin Radd's Silver Surfer?
Let us know in the comment section below while we hit you with the number 1 hottest book in the damn world, the Cosmos. Hit the subscribe button. We're here every single week covering the hottest books in the marketplace, keeping you in the know of what's spiking, what's hot, and what's trending. And let's talk about number 1, the hottest book in the world. And it's not Dazzler. And it has nothing to do with Deadpool and the Wolverine. We have number 1 on the list, X-Men number 1 from 1963, Jack Kirby goodness, the first appearance of the Mutants.
Something about X-Men 1 being number 1 on the Hot 10 just sits right with me. Like, that's why I wanted to do these videos with you in the beginning, talking about my favorite key issues, and it makes sense, especially with the success of X-Men 97, the potential X-Men universe in the MCU, and obviously Deadpool and Wolverine.
Marvel's also doing a stellar job with relaunching the X titles this year. There are so many to choose from. A great opportunity to jump on X-Men books. X-23 is probably going to be inbound. We have multiple X characters reprising their roles, and we're hearing rumors by the day of new ones being added potentially to that said roster. You can get a coverless copy of one of the most important Silver Age books of all time for $1,999. That's what someone paid this past week, for an increase of 21% when you compare it to the recent 12-month average.
Now, if you're trying to get into this book at its entry level, the lowest graded completed copy, you're looking at a CGC 1.0, which just sold for $4,854. That's 13% above its 12-month average and the year high.
13% may not seem like much, but this is an expensive book. That's a difference of like $500. Quick math. 3.0 went for $7,500, and that's an increase of 6%, also about $500 for the year high.
And if we go up a few grades to the 5.0, one just sold for $15,975. That's 20% above its 12-month average and $2,600 more.
Which brings us to a 6.5 for an increase of 6%, selling for $22,322 this week. That is a lot of cheddar. And that is a book that is separating itself from the rest of this list. I don't feel like it's a Deadpool, Wolverine, Spike. X-Men 97 is exciting, and it is amazing, but it has nothing to do with a person spending over $20,000 on this X key. Some books are only going to get so cheap, and some books are great investments. Better make it a blue chip, and you better hit the like and subscribe. And as always,
geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
And before I go, join me at C2E2 virtually on the best new place to buy and sell collectibles. It's called Whatnot. I have multiple drops, and I'm going to show them to you all right now. I have a Green Lantern glow-in-the-dark foil, Jackpot Black Cat Virgin, Star Wars and Darth Vader 43 Virgins, and last but not least, a Venom 3 homage on Crashdown issue number 3. Link in the description. Enjoy a free $10 credit if you use my link and you buy something. I will throw things in the buy it now for $10 for you so you can get something for free. Enough said.